That was Larry-Pressler, and it's kind of interesting. I get that guy's name right, Weiland. Weiland is very close, within 10 points, and my take on this is, as we're moving along, this race is going to tighten up much more tightly. Now, it will depend if they determine, will they go with Weiland or will they go with Pressler and send an independent? He's at 25 points. And Rounds is below 40. So, in other words, it's a very close operation that we go back and look at. And actually look at the numbers here. Very, very close indeed. Rounds is at 39. Wetland is at 28, so 11-point difference there, and Pressler. But a combination of Wetland and Pressler would beat Rounds. And the director of Survey USA, this is very similar to what's happening in Kansas with dissatisfaction with these Republicans. Now, will they go to Rounds? I doubt that. He's ahead by 11. But Wetland could tighten this up to Democrat. It just depends of which one tightens it up. There's only 3 points between Wetland and Pressler. Now, if Pressler goes ahead of the situation, I think Pressler has a very good chance, since he's a known quantity. He was in the Senate for 18 years, of catching up with Rounds and making it a very close contest. So that has to be decided which direction these people are planned to go. So we'll go ahead to the debate and let you decide who won this debate. You have effectively the two independents in the debate, in this particular debate, and one is not mentioned in the polls here, but you do have Pressler and you have Weiland. Rounds did not show up. But Rounds has got this EB5 scandal developing around him. Will that start to affect him? We'll have to wait and see on that particular one, and we'll be monitoring that as what is going on in Kansas with Roberts out there. Republicans are rallying around with him, but can they save him? He doesn't have a house there. Evidently, he was renting a room or whatever he was doing or there. His residence is elsewhere because he's been in the Senate for 30 years. So that continues to affect him. Now, in Georgia, another place, we have Dill there with President Carter's grandson. There's a 1-point difference. That's a margin of error. Snyder in Detroit, up by 2, margin of error there over Schuler. And then, of course, Peters is up by 10 on Land Lynn. That's a Detroit news there. Generic ballot, Republicans up by 4, and I think that is CNN. So it depends on where you want to go. With the president, his approval rating goes from Rasmussen, that is on Wednesday, at 47 to 38 for Fox. They both are done by the same people. And 40 and 42 on the other one there. So it's kind of an interesting situation with some of these polls that are appearing out here. On Tuesday, we had the ABC polls, and I think they had the generic ballot by 3 for the Republicans. So 3 or 4, you could say it is 2 at this point in time. So nonetheless, we will go on to this debate, and we will continue to keep you updated. We have some more programming coming up here on iHeart that we have done the last couple of days. We did the ISIS there, and we also the failed presidency of President Barack Obama. Many people talk about that. Is that just is it actually a failed presidency, or is it propaganda? We determine a president's success or failure by historic factors. We don't determine it by some voters that just happen not to like this particular president. Good day.
Here in South Dakota, but nationally as well. Democrats and Republicans in a real battle for control of the U.S. Senate, which currently has a Democratic majority. Joining us tonight are Democratic candidate Rick-weiland, Independent candidate Larry-Pressler, and Independent candidate Gordon Howie. The only candidate not attending this evening's debate is Republican Mike Rounds. We want to let you know that Mr. Rounds was offered the same invitation as the other candidates. However, a spokesperson for his campaign said he respectfully declined, citing their schedule and the number of joint candidate events that are already on the calendar. With or without him, we move forward tonight, so let's get started. First, the rules. Each candidate will be given 1 minute for an opening statement. During the questioning, each candidate who is asked the question will get 90 seconds to respond. The other candidates will receive 1 minute for rebuttal, as well as the original candidate. And finally, each candidate will receive 1 minute for a closing statement. We drew straws to decide the order, and the first opening statement tonight comes from Gordon Howie. Mr. Howie.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you for doing the favor to the South Dakota voting public of hosting this debate. South Dakota has a real choice in front of it, November, and the choice is, who do you want to represent you in the United States Senate? We know that there are several different philosophies of people running in this race. The power brokers would like you to think that a vote for Gordon Howie would somehow lose the Senate. I have a news flash for those people. The political prognosticators are all saying across the country that Republicans are very likely to win as many as 8 to 11 seats, more than the 6 needed to take the Senate. So here's the real choice South Dakotans have to make. What kind of Republican do you want to send to the United States Senate? A big government tax and spender, or someone with a proven record of fiscal responsibility? And that would be Gordon Howie. So I'd like to encourage you, as you listen to this debate tonight, take a serious look at the candidates and evaluate who is the conservative in this race. And I think you'll reach the same conclusion that I have.
All right, Gordon Howie, thank you so much for that. Opening statement now from Rick-weiland.
Well, thank you, KSFY, for hosting this debate. It's unfortunate Mike Rounds isn't here, but I just want you to know that I've been to, the last 16 months traveling extensively across our state. I've been to over 500 communities now, and I keep going back. I've had over 200 public-type meetings where, I show up and I listen and I learn. And part of this process is to show up. And unfortunately, one of our candidates running for the United States Senate isn't here tonight. And I think that is that's bad form. What I've learned out there in talking with the people of our state is they really do expect someone to show up who wants their vote. And they want someone to show up on the floor of the United States Senate who's going to be on their side and not on the side of their big money campaign donors. That's I think the real heart of this campaign is who's going to be out there in the United States Senate showing up every day, fighting for the voters of South Dakota, fighting for the people who expect a fair shake, for a fair deal as they move forward. That's what we expect. That's what the voters need to expect in this campaign process. And I just only hope Mike will show up for the future debates and forums that we're going to have in the coming days ahead. It's a critical election for this state. Lots at stake in our country here. And people have a right to know where their candidates who want to represent them and want to serve them, where they stand on the issues. What's their vision for South Dakota? What's their vision for the country? Not showing up is a problem. You need to show up to get elected.
All right, Mr. Weiland, thank you. Mr. Pressler, your opening statement.
I'm Larry Pressler, independent candidate for the United States Senate. I run as an independent to become a powerful voice for South Dakota. Independents are provided for in the U.S. Senate. There are 2 there now. It appears there'll be a 3rd from Kansas, and I would be a 4th. But this would break the poisonous deadlock between Republicans and Democrats, which we're not able to balance our budget or do anything about the deficit. I'm pledged to serve just 1 6-year term, so I would not have to raise any money during that term, and I could serve the people of South Dakota full time. There are many things I want to do. We need to raise the minimum wage. We need to help our teachers' wages. The middle class in South Dakota is suffering, and I want to work on the economy. There's a whole host of things. I've had 3 terms of experience. I can bring my seniority back to the Senate, and I can be a powerful voice for South Dakota. Also, there are a whole number of other issues for our Indians and non-Indians across the state. Harriet and I are departing tomorrow on a 15-city tour of South Dakota of intense campaigning. And I hear from South Dakotans that we have problems. Our people have economic problems. Our middle class is struggling, and we need to help people's wages get higher so they can have more purchasing power to help small business. Also, on the federal level, we must work on the deficit, and I will be talking more about that later. As a Vietnam combat veteran, I feel strongly that we need to reduce some of our foreign obsolete base spending. I want to balance the budget, but I also want to have a strong national defense. But we can do that by modernizing our military.
And Mr. Pressler, there is our time for opening statements. Gentlemen, thanks to all of you. Our first question this evening comes tonight from Olson on our KSFY Facebook page, and he is asking, what is your position on the Keystone XL pipeline versus South Dakota's quality of life standards? Now, Olson is worried about balancing the potential economic impact versus any possible environmental impact that might come with this project. So, Gordon Howie, we will begin with you. 90 seconds here. Is Keystone XL a good idea?
Well, fundamentally, we need to take charge of our energy policy in America, and we have been steamrolled by a president and an administration, and frankly, a Congress that's been complicit in hamstringing energy development. I'm in favor of the pipeline. I think what it would do to take the pressure off of rail system to allow for more shipment of grain, fertilizer, and other essential things for our #1 industry in South Dakota, and that, of course, is agriculture. But beyond the pipeline, I think the more pressing issue is what are we going to do as we move forward as a nation with regard to energy policy? Are we going to allow a president who behaves more like an emperor than a president to tell us that we're going to shut down coal-fired electrical production? Are we going to hamstring the production of oil and natural gas? Or are we going to have a comprehensive program that's environmentally safe, by the way, but at the same time stimulating our economy and allowing energy production and economic development?
Mr. Howie, thank you. Mr. Pressler, 60 seconds on the Keystone XL pipeline.
Yes. I would walk into President Obama's office, if elected, and say that we need to have small pipelines to move the North Dakota oil so our grain shippers can get their grain shipped. But I am opposed to the way Governor Rounds set up the XL pipeline for South Dakota. South Dakota doesn't get anything out of it. The oil just passes through our state, and it will endanger the Oglala Aquifer, one of our clean water areas. But our grain shippers need to have more of the North Dakota oil hauled by pipeline, smaller pipelines, as Governor Dayton of Minnesota has proposed. So I want some pipelines to move that North Dakota oil across Minnesota to the refineries, but this pipeline doesn't do it. And I also want relief so that the big train engines will haul grain rather than oil. This is something that I worked on a great deal. We had the DM&E Railroad worked out for our grain shippers, and there are a lot of practical problems in South Dakota related to this pipeline. I'm not ashamed to say that I'm a friend of President Obama. I don't support him all the time, but I'm the only Senate candidate who could walk into his office and talk about getting something for South Dakota.
All right, Mr. Pressler, thank you. Mr. Weiland, 60 seconds on Keystone XL.
Well, I think I'm really the only candidate that's come out in hard opposition to Keystone, and let me tell you why, because I think it's very important. You need to listen closely. One, this is not a jobs program as it has been billed by big foreign oil. This jobs they're talking about at most 35 permanent jobs, and no guarantee any of them are even going to be here in South Dakota. And it's not about energy security. This is an export pipeline that's going to run straight through our state, over the Oglala Aquifer, down to Port Arthur, Texas, and the oil is going overseas. So there's no energy security. So put those two things to rest. No jobs, no energy security. Now, let's talk about the environmental impacts, which was part of this question. This is a nasty, dirty oil coming out of Canada that they have to heat up to over 200 and some degrees and ship it through a pipeline that ultimately leaks. Keystone 1 has been leaking. 98 miles of Keystone 1 has got to be dug up and fixed because of inferior wells. Now, if you want to jeopardize the Oglala Aquifer And if you want to jeopardize our environment,